Mega Man has always seemed like a perfect fit for Nintendo Switch, and today we finally get a chance to prove it as Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2 hit store shelves and eShop's virtual shelves. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from Switch Force. Gabe is here, and we have been playing a ton of Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2 on Switch. Obviously, you know that this chronicles Mega Man 1 through 10, and those games have been out for, in some cases, decades. So we're not going to focus too much on Mega Man itself, but rather how the experience is on Switch and which collection we prefer, also if it's worth your money. These guys go for $40 as a retail cartridge package, but you will be downloading Legacy Collection 2, or you can pick them up $15 a pop on the eShop for a $30 total. Now, Gabe, you have had Mega Man Legacy Collection 1, which has Mega Man 1 through 6, and I have had Mega Man Legacy Collection 2 with Mega Man 7 through 10. How has it been?
It has been Mega Man on the Switch, and there are varying levels of enjoyment I've had with it, because playing it handheld, which is how I wanted to play the game, isn't the best, and we're probably going to get into that. That might be like the bulk of the discussion. But honestly, the games are like a great fit for the Switch. When playing with a Pro Controller, it feels amazing. It feels just like I remember them feeling. I loved going in there and applying filters and things of that nature. There are extra features that this game has that, you know, the old games didn't have, such as Rewind, which that kind of like turns it into something else, in my opinion. That's not how I want to play Mega Man, but I'm glad that it's there for people that find the games difficult, because they are difficult games. They are of a time when games were just much more demanding of precision with the platforming, things of that nature. But it's a really solid collection, and I can't find too many complaints. Some games have aged like better than the others. You said earlier today, like, hey, like Mega Man moves like a little slower than I remember him moving. To me, this is how Mega Man's always felt. So, yeah.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. I mean, obviously the Legacy Collection has been on other platforms for a couple of years now, but if you aren't familiar, these do incorporate the ability to play it at its original resolution, play it full screen, play it stretched. You can, as Gabe mentioned, in 1 through 6, you can rewind. You can create checkpoints to help you out. So if you reach a boss and have full health, you can create a checkpoint there rather than having to go through the level. And I don't know about the rewind feature. That one may be too much of a, free pass type of feature, but I like the checkpoint. It eliminates the frustration of having to redo entire levels, which is just something that in 2018 we're not as familiar with, we're not as comfortable with. But they still are great, challenging platformers that fit and feel fantastic on Switch, especially docked. Now, that's a bit of a bummer because handheld is where I would like to play these, and I don't think in any way they're unplayable. It was only after an extended play session and in certain situations where the Joy-Con in handheld mode became difficult. Now, I focused mainly on Mega Man 7 because that's, for whatever reason, my favorite, and then Mega Man 10 as the last game in the collection. And there just are certain platforming things you need to do that require quick and dexterous presses of the D-pad with precision that are hard when you have a Joy-Con right above it, that are hard when you have a button-based D-pad, and that are hard when your hands are at the angles they're at. It's honestly the first time that the Joy-Con have become a bother for me. I've never really ran into this before. I know we preferred Celeste on Pro Controller, but I felt like it was fine handheld. Jake played the entire game handheld, and I played a lot of those worlds handheld. For some reason in Mega Man, and I don't know if it's due to it being older and maybe very much an analog movement type game, but yeah, there were moments where I was like, gosh, I just don't want these Joy-Con anymore.
Yeah, and to be clear, we're talking about exclusively the lack of a actual D-pad on the Joy-Con. The game runs perfectly fine in handheld.
Yes.
Like, all of that's fine. I don't know if we've made that super clear.
Performance-wise, it's perfect, and just like in terms of how the games fit on the system, they're fantastic. I think given the rewind feature, given the checkpoint feature, they can become bite-sized affairs. It's really addictive to play and beat these bosses and get through the levels. They are short enough, but with a high enough challenge that it's always just such a great time and a great feeling when you beat them. For me, Gabe, it also was like my fingers kept bumping into the joystick and that was really irritating as well. And I probably played in like the least ideal handheld Mega Man scenario because I was on an airplane, so my arms were already on an airplane next to someone who was occupying a lot of my armrests, so my arms were already kind of scrunched, and then I'm holding it up, and it was still a lot of fun. I got through 4 bosses on the plane. I didn't have anything that I couldn't do, but it just felt a little bit like, ugh, like, can't wait to get home and use that Pro Controller. And then when I took out the rest of the Mega Man 7 bosses with the Pro Controller, like, it was a far smoother experience.
Yeah, I never had an instance where I was like bumping the actual joystick or anything like that, but I wasn't playing on the plane. I clearly agree though that handheld probably, or Joy-Con at least, isn't the way to play this whatsoever. Even if it's docked, if you're playing with the Joy-Con grip, you're going to encounter the same problem. So a Pro Controller is definitely a recommended way to play this.
If someone does not have a Pro Controller, does that change your overall feeling on the game?
No, not really. Because while again not ideal, I don't think I mind the lack of a D-pad as much as you. Like, yes,
Yeah.
it'd be great if it was better, but I wasn't having any like jarring experience with it the way you seem to.
Well, to get really granular, there's just certain instances where, like, specifically in Mega Man 7, you're trying to slide and then jump up a ladder to reach like a more difficult ledge, and like that stuff is just, you need extreme precision, and switching from like the right D-pad button to the up D-pad button is not happening how I'd like it to happen. And I agree with you though that like Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2 are still strong enough series of games, and at their price point still totally worthwhile. In terms of which one, I mean, I think that comes to personal preference. The reason we split ours the way we did is because Gabe likes the more, like the older, more original Mega Man games, the 8-bit ones, and I prefer more of the latter, although 9 and 10 are very 8-bit, even if they are numerically further down the line. I obviously am going to throw my hat in for Legacy Collection 2. I assume you will for 1, but I guess the better question is, do you buy both of these for $40, or do you get one and then maybe down the road get another and save $10?
I'm saving the $10. I don't. The cartridge thing doesn't necessarily matter to me. You got to download one anyways. You got to download 2 anyways. I meant one of them. So
right.
Yeah, I'm just gonna download them, save the $10, and just play. Honestly, I think the better games are in Legacy Collection 1. I think Mega Man 2 and 3 and 5 are just like amazing games. So yeah, I'm definitely going to advocate for Legacy Collection 1. Try that. And you have the rewind feature, right? So if you're new to Mega Man and, you're playing it normally and you're having a little bit too much trouble, that really helps a lot. Like, there's times where you're
that's not, just to be clear, that's not a part of Legacy Collection 2, the rewind specifically.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm advocating for 1 because you do have that rewind feature. So it's a better entry point, not just because, like, hey, numerically, like, it doesn't really matter what order you play these things in, but... No. Yeah, the rewind feature is a really nice feature for people that are not as familiar with the franchise and you are still like learning the way that the game works.
I will say I do like the variety that is in Legacy Collection 2. It is 2 less games. It's 4 games instead of 6. But the difference between 7, 8, and then 9 and 10 is far greater than the difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So
yes and no. To me, 5 is like a little like faster. 6, like even like they look different. I think these games are different. I think like 1 is very different. 2 and 3 are like more similar. Even 4, I guess.
Right, but I'm just speaking to like 7 being a Super Nintendo game, 8 being a PlayStation game, and then 9 and 10 being retro, retrofied new Mega Man.
Sure.
The newest Mega Man. Like there is 9 and 10 are most akin to the originals. 7 is sort of that Super Nintendo era, and then 8 is the awkward PlayStation child. So part of the reason I like this collection is just because there is a lot of different Mega Man content there. But I don't think you can go wrong with either. I think they are very recommendable and great additions to the Switch in either variety. How did you feel about, and this was the case, the collections on other platforms as well, but how do you feel about them not taking up the whole screen, whereas when we've played other 2D platformers, takes less an example, it fills up the whole Switch screen? Did that bother you at all?
You can make it take up the whole screen if you want to. I
It
refuse
looks
to play.
really gross.
Yeah, I refuse to play it that way, but you can if you wanted to.
I guess I just wish, and I know it's not possible, and I get that this is a remake, but it was something that initially I was like, ugh. Over time, it washed away, and especially docked, like, I could care less docked. It's just handheld where I was a little like, I kind of miss Celeste filling my whole screen beautifully.
Yeah, the games made in completely different times. So
Sure.
yeah, I don't let that bother me. I just play with border, and I add one of the filters to make it look like a CRT TV, and that's just kind of how I play. I like it.
Yeah. Where would you put this in terms of, like, does this vault towards the top of your must-have list for Switch, or is it more in the scrum of indie titles that are 2D platformers?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. Like, I mean, this isn't an indie title. I mean, this is Capcom. So, I would still advocate get Celeste before you get one of these collections, just because of what that does with story and things like that. But besides Celeste, I struggle to think of too many other games that are similar, right? Because there's plenty of other indie games that I would prefer, Sniper Clips. But as far as this genre, there's not many above Mega Man.
Yeah, and maybe at the $40 price point, it looks a little daunting, but if you do break them up and get them for $15 and start with one, I think this is, like, instantly recommendable. If this game was out when we made our top 25 Switch game list, I think it would most definitely be on there, and potentially pretty high up. I really like these games. I think they, even with the D-pad issues, are a great fit for Switch. They're a great fit to take on the go or play at home. It can be a little awkward if you've never played the Legacy Collection, just in the fact that, like, okay, so 7 is going to require that you use that checkpoint feature, whereas 9 and 10 have more traditional saves because they are technically newer games, even though they look older. So if you're not familiar, there can be a little bit of awkwardness there. And even just in the way that, like, you have to boot into the game and then boot out of the game, get back to the main screen. Some of that stuff I do find a little bothersome. But I will point out that you can use the Mega Man amiibo to unlock some extra challenges, which is kind of quirky and kind of cool. And this, to me, it fills a great void. Since we're not getting Virtual Console, I'm very glad to have one of my favorite nostalgic childhood franchises on the Switch, and to see that there are no glaring issues or performance problems or things of that sort. It doesn't feel like this is going to be a bad port in any way, and
I think it's
on
hard.
that account,
I think it's hard to make a bad Mega Man port.
sure, but we've seen things be botched before, so it's, I guess, reassuring to know that, hey, these are good, these are worth it, and better with Pro Controller, definitely still doable handheld, and the collections, depending on your preference, probably will be up there as one of the better Switch titles available. So that's Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2 available now. So let us know if you're planning to pick one up and what you think of the games if you do. We'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest and greatest from the Switch and its lineup as we head towards E3. You're going to want to follow us on Twitter and Discord. Links in the description. And until next time, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. For myself and Gabe, Switch Force, out.